Been just over a year. 1 year since I last swiped a security badge, stood in the morning queue for the lift, or had my week dictated by someone else's agenda. If you're reaching this milestone, the first thing to understand is that you're part of a specific, recognizable cohort. There's a social rhythm to redundancy here. For the first 3 months, you're available. By 6 months, you're searching. But once the calendar flips to a year, the external world starts to treat your situation with quite hesitant caution. Friends stop asking about your progress and start asking about your well being. There's a brief, careful glance, the way people do when they're not sure what to say next. Noticing that shift matters. This isn't an illness, it isn't a failure of effort, it's a structural interval. In the UK today, a 12 to 18-month gap for someone in their 50s is a statistical reality. Recognizing this is the first move towards containment. You aren't drifting because you lost your edge. You're navigating a phase with boundaries and a timeline, even if no one ever explains what they are. It's the part of redundancy that no one prepares you for. The stretch where the old structure is gone, but the new one hasn't settled yet. It's like looking at a car you've stripped back to the frame. The engine is sitting there on the floor, the one that ran on KPIs and early morning status calls. You could try and bolt it back in. Many people do. But something stops you, not because you know exactly what comes next, but because you know that forcing the wrong parts back on just to get moving again has a cost. That doesn't mean something has gone wrong. It means you're inside a phase with edges, even if no one ever told you where they were. You aren't stalling, you're holding the chassis steady. Monday mornings remain the heaviest part of the week for me still. For over 30 years, Monday was a physical and mental gearing out. Even now, the ghost commute persists. I still wake early, heart racing for a meeting that no longer exists. I'll go downstairs and make a cup of tea first. Outside, the streets move in their usual patterns, neighbours scraping frost from the windscreens. The rush of the commute, and that old good soldier voice creeps back in and whispers, "You should be out there with them." I open the laptop, check the job boards, emails, nothing. Refresh, still nothing. In the first 6 months, that silence felt like rejection. But 1 year, it starts to feel like data. The market's idle speed just doesn't match yours. To stay in motion, I fill the gaps with micro projects, small things I can actually complete. Model making, the concentration of painting the parts or the click of the plastic, researching, preparing, and recording my YouTube videos, adjusting scripts, tinkering with the lighting, or practicing my guitar. Slow repetition, chord work, finger memory. It all becomes a structural rhythm in the week. You aren't keeping busy, you're maintaining the structural integrity of your day while the outside world remains in neutral. A few months into this, most of us follow the system's expectations. We're signed on for job seekers allowance. In the UK, you can usually claim it for a limited period after redundancy, depending on your national insurance record. It wasn't so much about the money, although it helped a bit, but it hardly touched the sides. I signed on because I thought they might be able to give me some direction. But walking into a UK job centre when you're over 50 is a lesson in the architecture of devaluation. There's a bored security guard propped against the wall, a lectern at the front where someone equally disinterested checks you in, rows of desks behind it, all open plan, no privacy. The appointment lasts about 10 minutes. You sit there knowing the people on either side can hear every word you say. I expected some kind of career audit, someone who could look at 30 years of experience and say, right, here's how we retool this. But that doesn't happen. The system doesn't ask what you're good at. It just asks what you've done over the last 4 weeks. It's a box ticking exercise. And you feel yourself shrinking to fit it. Your shoulders hunch in and your voice gets quieter. I remember stepping outside afterwards. It was raining and people were moving past without noticing. And you start to feel like legacy hardware waiting to be decommissioned. But the error isn't in you, it's in the system. It's a volume based machine, not a value based one. Once you see that clearly, you stop taking it quite so personally. By year one, you've done what the system expects. You've polished your CV, sent it out, followed up, maybe even reached out to people who said, "Leave it with me." You've watched entire weeks drift by without a single meaningful reply. That silence feels personal, like a judgment. You start replaying conversations in your head, wondering if there's a line on your CV marking you as difficult. This is where the numbers help. The UK job market is in a kind of suspended animation. Official figures show unemployment at 5.2%, the highest in nearly 5 years. JP Morgan's tipping it to reach 5.5% by late spring. It's not just that more people are looking, it's that the ratio of unemployed people to vacancies is at a post pandemic high. Some of this is structural. New workers' rights, higher employer contributions, and rising minimum wages mean companies aren't just hiring slowly, they're hiring cautiously. Hiring managers aren't looking for depth or pattern recognition, they're looking for the path of least resistance. If you represent 30 years of experience and context, you don't look like an urgent solution. You look like a complex variable. So your application doesn't get rejected, it just sits in the queue. Thousands of people in your exact bracket are experiencing this same delay. It's the market idling, stuck between gears. Once you see the data for what it is, the anxiety loses its teeth. You stop treating the silence as a verdict of your own worth and start recognizing it for what it is, a structural pause you happen to be standing inside. You aren't an outlier, you're part of a cohort moving through slow turning machinery. When the weather allows, I go out for a walk. I notice things I was too busy to see for 2 decades. Shadows falling across the walls at 3 in the afternoon, people out walking their dogs, birds singing in the trees. For 20 years, my world was a blue light screen and a series of pings. Now it's cold air and the sound of my own footsteps. The good soldier voice still shows up occasionally. It says you should be more productive. But these walks are productive. They strip back layers of corporate identity. Under the job title, there's still curiosity, still observation, still the ability to breathe properly. You aren't drifting, you're recalibrating. 12 months, pressure peaks. Just take anything, you think. Get back into the swing of things. But to me, that's dangerous. Taking the wrong role out of panic is like fitting a cheap part into a machine. It might move, but breakdown comes within months. If you accept evaluation, you defer the crisis, looking yourself into patterns that can swallow 5 years. At our age, 5 years is valuable currency. Sovereignty here is saying no to the wrong paycheck. Action without awareness is just noise. Restraint is the power. This is where the searching stop and the assessment begins. I've had to look at my situation without the filter of what a recruiter or a neighbour thinks. I've realised that my savings aren't a countdown clock to zero. They're a buffer that buys me the right to think clearly. It's not about having a mountain of cash. It's about the brutal math of what you can cut out to keep your head. Being calm at a year isn't a luxury, it's a tactical necessity. If you treat your finances as a panic meter, you'll make a decision based on fear, not fit. If you treat them as a fixed resource for a transition, the internal pressure changes shape. I've also looked at my routine, maintaining a standard for how the day looks, the walks, the hobbies. It isn't about keeping busy to look good, it's about ensuring that when the right thing does eventually appear, you haven't already let your standards slide into the background. This isn't an existential crisis, it's a measurement of what you actually have. It's about ensuring the next move is made on your terms, not out of desperation. Culture obsesses over transformation. We're told to emerge new, optimized. I don't buy it. Containment is the aim. Protect your judgment, defend your time and energy. Notice the phase you're in without letting it define your worth. Many people pass this interval in silence, thinking they're alone. You're not. Observing your week, hobbies, walks, routines, it builds a new stability, not a payslip stability, stability of a mind that knows its own edges. You're in a predictable structural interval. It has edges. It will end. Until then, keep moving. 1 year redundant in the UK is heavy. It's not a failure though. It's a pause between acts. You carry routines, rhythms, and over 30 years of observation into every day. You choose presence over panic. The background grumpiness tends to fade when you stop apologizing for being where you are. Conversations with family don't have to drift back to restructures or contingency plans. You start seeing opportunities that were invisible when you were sat in a cubicle. What emerges isn't a new version of you, it's just you, but steadier and better protected. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.